And for the last speaker, who's going to take us through this roller coaster ride of conviction this evening, is Anand Ranganathan. Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson and Madam Chairperson. You know, I came prepared for my 7 minutes, but I request for the clock to not be started just yet. Because I need to rebut the excellent Mr. Shankar Aiyar for his plethora of lies, particularly against me, but I don't want it to eat into my time. So it's a humble request. Moreover, it would only take me 30 seconds. Now, normally I would ignore money like the first and last slices of a loaf of bread. But today I want to make a sandwich out of him. Thank you. Money, I'm convinced, was born to make Rahul Gandhi look good. To be sure, he raised some very valid points. Sadly, the spelling is R-A-Z-E-D. He has destroyed all arguments. Let me expose just 2 lies. Number 1, it wasn't Savarkar the first to propound the two-nation theory, but rather Sir Syed, 40 years before Savarkar. And the quote that Hindus and Muslims are two antagonistic races is in fact Sir Syed's, not Savarkar's. In fact, the first one to propound the two-nation theory was not even Sir Syed, but money's ideological god, Karl Marx, in his 1853 book, The Eastern Question. So much for reading history, money. Number 2, and this is a very easy lie to rebut because I'm sorry, money, I am not a professor of history in JNU, but a professor of molecular medicine. And I am right now involved in making a vaccine that would allow people to be immune against lies. So if you want, you can be the first volunteer. Can I now please request the chair to start the clock? Thank you for inviting me to this wonderful debate with a wonderful audience and wonderful adversaries who, and I say this in a lighter vein, can be introduced in 4 sentences. The first was kept in suspended animation by the Congress. The second has been suspended by the Congress. The third is itching to be suspended by the Congress. And the fourth is so sloshed that he can't even remember if he or he is not suspended by the Congress. As for the topic, I'm intrigued because this much emphasis on history, quite frankly, amuses me. Forget re-narrating. What in the first place do we mean by our history? You see, as a scientist, the time scale that interests me is not 100 or 500 or 1,000 years, but 1 billion or 5 billion or 10 billion years. And on this time scale, I'm not Indian, but Ethiopian. I'm not a descendant of a Ranganathan, but the descendant of AL 2881 or Lucy. And I'm not a creation of design, but of a conspiracy hatched by thunder and lightning and water and ammonia and hydrogen and methane and dust. Let religion and its mesmerizing literature not fool you into believing you were created by someone who wasn't a product of the RNA world. And so nothing really matters, whether our ancestors were brilliant or not, whether our culture is ancient or not, whether our religions are better or not. We are but an inconsequential bunch of cells. Then why does history matter? It matters because, like science, it has to be built on an edifice of truthful observation and facts, because the correct understanding of it strengthens us, helps us survive, with a slight difference. Scientists like black and white, historians love the gray. This gray has given mankind, I put to you, ladies and gentlemen, only misery. It is because of the gray that there are people who still believe in religious books, or in Mao and Hitler and Tipu and Godse and Churchill and Rhodes and Aurangzeb and hundreds more who have committed awful crimes, but the believers of gray have forgiven them because they also did some good. Gray is social Darwinism gone berserk. Gray has birthed cruel empires, and believers of the gray have feted them. Worse, our history has been written by those who believe in the gray. Nations weaken not because of their past, but rather by how they are taught it. For 70 years, we have been taught to forget historical injustices. From Somnath to Kashi Vishwanath, Babarpur to Bakhtiyarpur, from Allahabad to Aurangabad, these injustices have deliberately been made visible, as though to lionize the debasement, celebrate the humiliation. And the irony is that the same people who have taught us this, drilled this self-loathing in us, these very same people, men and women of grey, want others to fight historical injustice around the world. They condemn barbarians of the West, hitherto worshipped, like the Confederacy generals, Rhodes, Churchill, Pizarro, Murray, Colston, Leopold. They celebrate their roads and buildings being renamed, their statues being brought down. But here in India, they eulogize Tipu, Aurangzeb, Babar, Khilji. They celebrate the destruction of Kashi, Mathura, Ayodhya, Martand. Why? To me, the mark of civilization is this unquenchable thirst to demand justice for your ancestors, to correct a historical wrong. For that exemplifies a continuity, an idea, a memory that can never be erased. That is worth fighting for and preserving. It makes justice greater than the sum of its parts. And that is why civilizations are not fleeting like empires. That is why history is a medicine. Catharsis is a cure. If an image could speak 1,000,000 words, it would be that of the Gyan Vyapi mosque built atop Kashi Vishwanath, demolished by Aurangzeb. If orphaned stones could speak and not just weep, the stories they would tell of Mathura idols being used as stepping stones in a mosque, why shouldn't Mathura or Kashi be washed of the sins of the tyrants committed on it? But the Supreme Court has willfully ratified the Places of Worship Act that obligates maintaining all religious places as they were on August 15, 1947. In a just world, our Parliament and our Supreme Court wouldn't have done this. But they have. Why? Because we are fearful of learning our true history. There are hundreds of examples, but just one would suffice. Tipu Sultan. Read his manifesto, written in his own words. It is a terrifying proclamation calling for all Muslims to come together to wage jihad. Annihilation of the infidels is a sacred duty, he writes. The Hindus of Coorg suffered a particularly brutal onslaught. Murders, tortures, forced conversions, even dead Hindus were converted, even dead Hindus. He destroyed 800 temples, 27 churches, captured 60,000 Christians, converted 30,000, killed thousands. And yet we call him a symbol of communal harmony. We cheer when the statue of the evil racist King Leopold is demolished in Belgium. But the same we celebrate Tipu Jayanti because tyrants who murder Hindus and Christians are not tyrants but heroes. Let me make a more contemporary example. Our first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru. He cultivated this image very carefully of an upholder, a protector of liberty and freedom of speech, an image that is still peddled by his worshippers and historians and namesakes. But the reality is very different. Nehru was a tyrant, a ruthless oppressor of freedom. Did you know that under him the draconian First Amendment was brought in? That Majru was jailed for 1 year? That Stanley Woopert's book 9 Hours to Rama was banned? Did you know Chandra Mohini was banned? Audrey Menem's Ramayana was banned? Campbell's Heart of India was banned? Kostler's Lotus and the Robot were banned? Frischler's Aisha was banned? Bertrand Russell's Unarmed Victory was banned? Just 30 more seconds. Robson's film 9 Hours to Rama was banned. Robert Taylor's Dark Urge was banned. Mrinal Sen's Neela Akshar Niche was banned. Tony Hagen's Nepal was banned. Film Gokul Shankar was banned. Godse's Testimony was banned. Goswami's film Runumi was banned. Historian Dharampal was jailed. President Rajendra Prasad's speech was banned. Draconian Press Objectionable Act was passed. Magazine Cross Laws was banned. Play Communist Taki was banned. Its actors arrested. People's Theatre Association was banned. Play Harpita Master was banned. Film Ganga Jamna was blocked. Balraj Sahni's play Jadoo Ki Kursi was banned. Tagore's play Visarjan was banned. Editor Prahlad Keshav Atre was jailed. Harmonium was banned. But hey, Nehru was liberal and protected freedom of speech and expression. To end then, history for us is either to be hidden or invented. We tell and retell what we like of it, and what we don't, we scrunch it up and slip it under the mattress as if it doesn't exist. For the victors, a quill to write history with. For the vanquished, the burden to peddle it. But we forget. We forget that history is not homeopathy. It does not work as a placebo when diluted. It simply disappears. Ladies and gentlemen, we owe it to our survival to be ruthlessly honest about our history. We owe it to science to make sure history doesn't disappear. Let me go one by one because there's quite a lot of material our opposing side has provided us. Sanjay is a very dear friend, but he reminded me of Guido in Fellini's 8½, who said, I have nothing to say, but I'll say it anyway. I mean, in fact, he agreed with our proposition. I'm kind of embarrassed. And he talks of boasts. Sanjay, do you know who snooped on Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and his family for 30, 40 years? Do you know that it wasn't until 2019 that INA members were allowed to take part in Republic Day parade? What are you talking about? Shouldn't these facts be known? And who? Who snooped? Yes, Jawaharlal Nehru. Of the excellent Shankar Aiyar, his arguments are like expired poison. You are left wondering whether it is more poisonous or less poisonous. I mean, he accuses me of narrating a litany of complaints about Nehru banning books and films. Well, he is a writer. He has written, albeit contentious, a lot of books. How would he feel if Modi banned all his books? Would he not want people to know that Modi has banned his books? Would film writers not want to know that Nehru banned their books or their films? Or jailed writers, jailed authors, jailed Majru Sultanpuri because he called Nehru as Hitler ka chela? And one of the other speakers, I'll come to him abhi, sabka hisab hai. He said, he talked about, Nehru ke liye complaint kar rahe ho, Nehru ko tyrant keh rahe ho, dekho Modi kya kar. Is that the argument? Two wrongs make a right? By the way, I also have a list where this present government has been stomping on freedom of speech and expression. I do. And I am the first one to shout from the rostrum saying that UAPA charges have been leveled. People have been arrested. But this gentleman did not talk about how in this West Bengal, Mamata Di has also arrested people on charges of sedition, on charges of UAPA. That he will not tell. But I'll come to that later. I'll come to my another good friend Manish. His arguments were excellent, except for the beginning, the middle, and the end. He quoted Churchill. Now, I am not one to quote the racist Churchill because it's not politically correct, but let me quote because he did. Incidentally, he was wrong on the number of Bengalis who died of famine. There were 4.3 million. He should know his facts, but then they are from the other side. But, Churchill said, an empty taxi rolled into 10 Downing Street and Chamberlain got out. He reminded me of that. Now let me come very finally, I have very few time left, I'm sure I'll get 30 more seconds, of Mr. Jawahar Sarkar. He managed to pack in so many lies in 7 minutes. It is entirely fitting that he's a member of parliament. I do not have time, in fact I'm running out of time, but I beg for 30 more seconds because I need to expose just 4 of his lies. Number 1, this 15 lakh thing about Modi is absolute fake news. Modi never said that he will transfer 15 lakhs into everyone's account. He never said it. This is fake news. Number 2, I knew he wanted to draw on the audience, and it was a very conceited ploy to mention church attacks. Does he know that that was the first fake narrative of 2014? That it later transpired that all those churches that were attacked were actually arson and looting, and more churches had that same fate under UPA than NDA? He did not say that. Number 3, he talked of Buddhism. Does he know that Ashoka was Buddhist already for 4 years before he went into Kalinga War and killed millions? Does he know that? We don't know this. Nobody knew this except Sanjeev Sanyal's book when I read it. Number 4, he talked about Savarkar not supporting Quit India. Sure. Does he know that Ambedkar said to support Quit India is insane? Gandhi is a prophet of dark age. And finally, you must allow me, I beg you, he talked of Manusmriti. Sure, burn it, Mr. Sarkar. I'll be the first one, although I don't want burning. I don't like burning books, but burn Manusmriti. But I ask you, if you have the guts, you will answer. What do you want to do with the book that says polytheists, i.e. Hindus, are the worst of creatures, 98.6? That men have control over women and then can beat them, 434. That if you don't believe in our verses, you will rot in hell. That women are tilling fields. Go on to them as you like.
Thank you, Anand.
What do you want to do with that book?
Thank you, Anand.